You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Board of Police Commissioners on June 14th, Monday at 5:40. Running a little bit late. First of all, I'd like to have the approval of the minutes for May 10th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Then we're going to have an executive session.
Oh.
You're going to need a motion to go in executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Yep. Aye. Okay, we're back from executive session. No votes were taken. I'd like to have a motion to go back into the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second. All?
Aye.
Okay. Report of the chief.
No, wait.
Oh,
As a result of executive session, I'd like to make a motion that we hire Andre Coutu, C-O-U-T-U, as patrolman starting July 1st of this year. Can I have a second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Report of the chief.
All right, pretty short, not much
Thanks,
to
Rick.
report. I think it's important to point out, it's good to be back, it's good to see you all here. It feels like it's been forever.
Agreed.
So all good signs that we're getting back to normal. As far as the chief's report and everything else, I'll start with correspondence. The only thing we have is from a resident sent in a very nice handmade card. And what it was in response to was, at 1 a.m. one morning, Officer Brenda Vera was on patrol, and she noted that overhead garage doors of the residence, both of them were wide open. And in light of our thefts of the vehicles, thefts from vehicles, Officer Vera made contact with the homeowner, woke them up, and explained to them that the house was unsecured. They were actually concerned and very appreciative, and she gave them some crime and some safety tips. So at 1 in the morning, they had a very productive interaction, and the resident just wanted to say how much they truly appreciated that. So that's good proactive work right there, you know. And they were unaware. That's not something that they ever do. They were very good about locking the doors, and it was a miscommunication between her and her husband. So good job for Officer Vera. As far as injury, we have nothing to report. Forfeiture, pretty stable. We haven't had a lot of movement in that account. The only thing that we are considering, but it'll be under the threshold of $5,000. We did have a couple calls that required some resources, some specialty lighting that we purchased, and some other just basic stuff, cones and equipment that we would use on scene, tarps, tents, and the detectives had to kind of just shuffle it. So they've looked at a little trailer that our regular police vehicles will be able to tow. So they're speccing that out to look at that idea, and I think that's going to come in around $4,500. So I might do that expenditure in the future. They're just working on some details. It makes sense, you know, not a huge trailer, just enough to get. We have specialty lights that they're kind of heavy, but they're very effective. So to put them in the back seat of a car and get them there and everything. So this is just a quick fix for that. As far as the Comstat report, you'll see we're pretty stable. There was a minor decrease in Part 1 crimes, very, very low. Auto thefts were down about 35%.
That's good.
I almost didn't want to highlight that because I don't want to, put the brakes on any people from thinking that, I think this morning we just had a brand new 2021 vehicle, keys in it, was stolen, recovered in Hamden. So that one will pop on next month, but we're not out of the woods. That's gonna be something that's with us. So please continue to do not leave your keys or your fobs in the car and leave them unlocked. The other thing is, as kind of a PSA, what we're seeing across New Haven County is theft of purses. And what is occurring is female drivers are pulling up to gas station pumps, and they're, obviously your doors are unlocked because you're getting out, and they're pumping gas, and as they go back around to get in the car, the doors are unlocked. As they're doing that, the offenders are waiting, and they're coming up, opening up the passenger door, grabbing the purse and running. So that's one of the ways they're doing it. The other way is when you go shopping, it's natural, you unlock the car, open up the trunk, put the groceries in the trunk and/or the back seat, the doors are unlocked, and where do you put your purse?
In the trunk.
They put the purse on
Well,
the passenger
what you
seat.
should do is put it in the
So
trunk.
they're running up as you're either in the back seat putting your groceries or in the trunk, they're opening up the passenger door, or there's even been a few where people got in the car and they've opened it up. So, be mindful of your surroundings when you're doing that. It's unfortunate I have to mention that, but I think it's important because it is something that we're seeing. And we've been victimized. Cumberland Farms, I think, has gotten hit twice with cases similar to that. You'll see in the cases of significance, we had a robbery at Chucky's Mobile. Our robberies are up slightly, they're up by 2. Again, our auto thefts are down a little bit, but our theft from auto, that's where they're going into the cars that are unlocked. Those are up 80% this year. So year to date, we're at 72 versus 40 last year. That's not good. We know what's driving that. Our enforcement, our traffic enforcement, that's very stable. The numbers are about the same. There's an increase in the amount of tickets they gave out. In other meetings, we look at that, but our traffic unit, we've had 1 officer. We are used to having 2 officers in traffic, and because of staffing, we've backed off. We have 1 who is out there. So we're hoping to get back up to speed and get 2 officers in that position at some point. But we had to, manage we're in the tough times now with the summer, with the vacations, and now that COVID's left, we have a lot of vacation time that's been stored up. So officers are using that, and our call volume tends to increase. So we will get the traffic back up when we can there. Also, as of tonight, with your most recent hire, I'm happy to report that we're at full staff.
Perfect.
I don't know, let's be careful, I don't know when the last time we can say that.
It's
That's my
been a
point.
long
It's been
time.
a long time since we've been
And
able
what
to
is
say
that number? to full staff?
50
60, isn't it?
sworn officers,
52.
52 sworn uniform post-certified officers. So we have a pending retirement in the fall. So we'll be we're running a recruitment right now. So in the fall, we'll be looking to possibly hire someone who's non-certified. I think it's important to look at that. So we can discuss that in the future. The only other thing with this is, on the Commissioner's report, you'll see that we added in, and I'm going to have the deputy from here on out when we have our commission meetings, we're going to look at 2 things, or actually 3 things. The mental health calls and where we're trending with those, what we're doing with those, updates on that, and our domestic violence and domestic calls, and also our training summaries. It was something that wasn't always reported in that report, but I think it's something that we need to highlight. So I'm going to have this report tweaked a little bit in that succession, in that order. So I'll cover the first part of the report, and then I'll turn it over to the deputy so he can do the second half of the report. I just think when we look at what we're doing and our research of what we've done with mental health, that is a big part of our time. So I thought it was definitely noteworthy to be in your report every month, so that, we had the questions in the traffic committee, can an officer do enforcement at this street and do this? Yeah, we're balancing all those, but we also have these demands on on our calls for service. And as the deputy goes through these and gives you some updates, you'll see that they're very time-consuming calls, and rightfully so. So with that, I'll turn it over to him, and he'll give you a briefing on that.
So you'll see that in terms of mental health calls, we're up 19% in the month of May over the month of April. It's a slight increase, however, it's consistent with what we typically see. So what you can expect is daily we're on these calls for service. 47 of the cases were referred to both BH Care and Branford Counseling. All individuals that were not already receiving services from these agencies were contacted and offered services. BH Care does report that they see an increase in officers feeling comfortable with reaching out to them and requesting assistance with crisis intervention. So I think that's a byproduct of our collaboration with BH Care and Branford Counseling in the efforts to place emphasis on mental health care. So a couple of victories that we had this month. Branford Counseling was able to give support to a family who lost a member because of suicide based on our referrals. So they reached out and were able to support that family. We had a victory with a female who was in need of mental health care but was hesitant to cooperate with police and social workers. She had 7 prior police contacts since December of 2020. So in this month, officers and BH Care crisis workers were able to get the woman to the hospital, and from there, the social workers were then able to monitor her care while she was in Yale, and they're going to coordinate her discharge when she gets released. So hopefully that will help resolve some calls for service and improve her quality of life. BH Care had received a report about one of their clients who had overdosed on sleep medications in a suicide attempt. They weren't aware of this, and without our collaboration, they wouldn't have known. So they were able to alter their care for this person based on that. And as you know, the Town Emergency Services social worker position was approved. That position has been posted nationally, so it's also on the Town of Branford website if anyone is interested. It's posted with the National Association of the Social Workers. It's on Indeed, and that position will be open until filled. So HR is currently working on that. In terms of the other calls for service there, our drug overdoses and actually found intoxicated were superimposed on this chart. So we had 2 drug overdoses in the month of May, 8 intoxicated individuals that we had interacted with. So domestics, they were down to 37 domestic violence incidents that we responded to in the month of May. That was down from 45 in the month of April. So these are numbers that are always there.
And with COVID too, with everybody home, you would think domestics would be up more, don't you think?
Better weather.
Yeah,
People out of the
well,
house,
yeah.
I don't know. So in terms of training, Synopsis, we do a lot of training. We've been very fortunate. Our training Lieutenant Carangelo is keeping our officers on task with training. We had completed in the month of May Vertra, our shooting decisions training that I think some of you were able to see that simulator. We've done handcuffing, OC baton. This was all taught by our certified department instructors, Amaranti and Officer Rocco Morgan. 10 officers completed 2-day crisis intervention trainings, and that will help our response to the mental health calls for service. So that's always been something that we're looking to try to get 100% of our officers through that training, and we're getting there. Our numbers are probably up at 65 to 70% of our officers at this point have had that training. 4 officers attended a peer support training that was held by behavioral health consultants in conjunction with EAP. We had death scene investigations training. Our dispatchers completed EMD certification. We had a captain that attended a middle manager's training, command series training. And we had an officer complete a 2 weeks firearms instructor's course, Officer Burkhart, so he'll be another firearms instructor with our agency. Our SWAT officers attended their monthly SWAT training. And we had some toxicology training. We also have our new officer, Gonzalez. She's on our field training program right now after transferring from Bridgeport PD. So she was hired last month.
When will she be ready to?
We're going to do a 10-week program, full 10 weeks. So she'll have another few weeks to go on that.
So,
Thank you.
you know, a couple things with the crisis social worker and that project. You know, the deputy spearheaded that, and part of the police accountability bill, we had to do a feasibility study. And speaking with some of my colleagues from across the state, you know, the report that he put together in conjunction with our crime analyst, Dominique, a very good report. Many PDs have commented on it. Don't think they can meet that bar, but what we did, and ultimately, I, you know, congratulate Pete, Margaret Liberta, and John for their pushing this forward and the support of the community to get this position. But, you know, I still get questions from people, well, you don't have enough social workers because you have to man or staff 24/7. And I think it's important to see from some of the results of where we've shifted our focus, is this person's going to be on staff during the day or varying hours, but it's more the referral, staying on top of things, mitigating repeat calls to certain addresses, and, you know, when the officers do need him or her at the scene, they can call, or we can still rely on VH care. So there was some questions about that. Well, how are you going to do it with one person? They're not going to be here at 2 in the morning. No, our people are still capable and always have been capable of doing this. This is just another added layer of service that we're lucky, and we'll monitor, we'll look at it. You know, I think the deputy spoke of like victories, you know, like, all right, let's look at what we've done. How did we impact people and stop repeat calls, you know, or prevent the calls? You know, if we can get people into treatment and have a liaison with the hospital, which we don't do. We don't have this. So I think it's important to publicly point out that, you know, when the officer deals with someone who's in a mental health crisis, for us it ends when the ambulance pulls away, and we're on to the next call. Since the deputy's project and the proposals, we've really picked that up and said, no, we're not done when that ambulance pulls away. We're going to get these reports and we're going to farm them to the community services, we're going to farm them to BH care. Now we're going to give them to our crisis social worker, and then that's when the referrals are going to happen. So, you know, it's weekly, and I say, you know, how many reports? So it was 18 this week, it was 11, it was 12, like, so we're pushing very high numbers. So I want to say that it's a good thing to have. We'll look at it, we'll evaluate it. If we need to expand it, we expand it. If we need to pull it back, we pull back. But I think all in all, you're going to hear some of this on a monthly basis as we get this up and running. So again, my hat's off to everyone who pushed this forward.
Right, I want to ask John a question here. Am I correct that traditionally somewhere between 25 and 35% of our calls for service are for mental issues and/or domestics?
Yeah, I mean, I would say off the top of my head that definitely would be accurate between those two categories. Maybe
That's a
higher.
huge amount of what we do. I'm only saying this publicly because I'm not sure if the general public realizes how much we have to engage in that every single day.
That's where our work hours are going. That's, you know,
Right.
We constantly strive to try to get into other avenues. You know, traffic's always a big thing, but it's important for us to highlight that this is what we're doing many hours of the day.
Right.
I think the latest analysis that was done, John may be able to, it was on a crisis mental health call. There was an average of 3 cars, which makes sense because that's 2 officers, a backup and a primary, and we want our supervisors on these calls. So there's 3 calls, and I want to say the duration was 28 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was even higher. I think it was over 38 minutes maybe.
38 minutes. So you have an 8-hour shift, and our numbers tell us we average one a day, there's about a half an hour, it might have been 38 minutes, 3 cars tied up. So that's how we manage our resources, and that's why I think it's important that we, include it every month, and, hopefully we can see those numbers drop. But that's a byproduct of all the other issues in society that didn't really have a place to be put, and where did it end up?
How many cars do we have, I'm sorry, how many cars do we have that are available every day? 5?
So we have some minimums. It's never really good practice for us to say, how many we'll put out there at certain times. It does fluctuate, but yes, I'd say 5 is a good number. And then the way our schedule works pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement, we may have higher numbers at certain times throughout there. But, so they are, they are busy. Obviously, the calls are variable, so some nights it'll be quiet, some nights it won't, some days are quiet. But that's kind of what we're facing nowadays, so.
Go ahead, Patty, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I just have a question. You said 3 cars answer supervisor and then 2 other cars. Is there ever a time where you can release 1 to 2 other cars based on?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not an automatic given that all 3 are tied up?
No, but when we look at these numbers, that's what our CAD system, of how we monitor where people go and what they do, that's the average, that's what the numbers, So when we look at the statistics, that doesn't mean on every call they're there for 3. We don't want that. So obviously, number one, people get concerned, they see 3 police cars on your street, what's going on? If the scene's secure and they're fine, they'll release cars. And we do that for all our calls.
I think it would be scary for the individual also to see 3 cars pulling up,
Well,
based on,
The neighbors.
well, no, not the the neighbors too.
you have
but
to
I'm just
understand
saying-
that some of these calls, that's why they're called a crisis. It's how they approach, it's how they speak to the individual, it's the tactics they use. So, I would not be comfortable with saying, and I actually saw an article that someone, I believe it was in New York City, was proposing disarming cops and that social workers should go to these scenes alone. Hey, listen, we're open for change. We're a very progressive police department. I think this project is representative of that, but no, I'm not going to send my officers to a crisis call and limit the resources because, they think it might. No, we have a system to work in. We have best practices. We have tactics. We have training. And we want our supervisors on those calls, on the domestic calls. But yes, absolutely, for efficiency reasons, if they're not needed at a call, they're released and we get back to business.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anything else to cover? No?
We have
Traffic.
Traffic.
Okay, so there was a request to remove the pedestrian lollipops on Linden Avenue. These lollipops were put in, I guess, a few years back at the request of the community out there to slow down the traffic. So they were installed, and now there is an individual who wants them taken out as he feels it is dangerous to his car, mirrors hitting it. The road isn't wide enough. Any rate, at this time, we're not recommending any action be taken. Lieutenant Ramey and I will try to set up a time to meet with the community that voted to approve them in the first place.
Okay.
Right. That would be the Linden Shores Association, correct?
Yes.
So it might be more appropriate for this person to actually speak to them, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
There was another thing that was brought up at the traffic committee meeting, and it has to do with the area down by Lenny's and Freaky Tiki and the stand, and the increased awareness and concern for pedestrian safety. Lieutenant Ramey and I attended a meeting last week with 4 or 5 RTM members and several residents and 4 or 5 business owners to discuss the problem. There were, we have received a list of long-range wish list, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. But since it's a state road, probably not many of them will ever come to fruition. But the one thing that was discussed within the purview of the Branford Police would be to try to improve the lighting down there. And I found out that there's different volumes of light, and wattages, I guess, that we could request a higher wattage in that area. Some of the business have already put up lights on their parking lot areas, but more lights are required. So we will be looking into this. Lieutenant Ramey will reach out to the DOT to discuss other suggestions such as sidewalks, pedestrian crosswalks, traffic lights, etc. Any questions or anything, Deputy, that you want to add to that?
We'll do our best to increase our enforcement efforts and our presence. And we already have a speed trailer down there heading both northbound, and we have a permanent sign heading southbound into the area. So we plan on keeping that there for as long as we can. And that's it. A combination of all these different things may help improve the situation. That's what we're looking at doing.
Does that conclude your report?
It certainly does.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we have report of the chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Pardon me. Do you have anything?
No, I don't. But actually, it's
Well,
nice.
all righty then.
No, it's nice to see everyone again. I mean, just to not be on that Zoom and just be able to make contact, read body language. I mean, it's just great.
I agree.
And-
This is my first one in person, and it's so much better than
Oh, yeah, of course.
than the Zoom. Yeah.
And also, our next meeting is July 12th, and I have something to say after. I think, well, we're finished now.
So
All
make a
right, I'd like to
motion.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BrantfordTV.org.